What's up, Night Owl? Steely here, back with another video, and today I'm going to be telling you about the Chapter 2 point of interest, Black Cabin. The party will hear about the Black Cabin if they visit the House of the Morning Lord in Bryn Shander. A gnome by the name of Copper Knobberknocker will ask the party to deliver provisions to a friend of his at the Black Cabin who is currently working on a device that will bring summer back to Icewind Dale. Copper can't offer anything as a reward, but Mishan, who runs the House of the Morning Lord, will offer the party free healing as a thank you for helping Copper. Copper's friend Macretus went to the Black Cabin 6 months ago with a plan to end the Frostmaiden's everlasting winter. The plan was that he would build a magical item called the Summer Star, which he developed based off of a book on Netherese artifacts that he found. Unfortunately for Macretus, the device that he did build had a design flaw which caused him to incinerate, and now his spirit is stuck here at the Black Cabin, and he's unable to finish his work, which is where the party will come in. The only way to see or interact with Macretus is to cross over into the Border Ethereal, which means dying here at the Black Cabin. You see, dying here at this cabin has a unique mechanic to it. If a creature with an intelligence of 3 or higher dies here at this Black Cabin, their spirit will manifest in the Border Ethereal, and it'll take on whichever form that the characters choose. But the important thing is that they are stuck here at this cabin. They can't leave as they are a spirit in this Border Ethereal. Another important thing about this spirit is that it is not considered a creature. It can't make attack rolls, saving throws. It doesn't have conditions. It can't cast spells or tune to magic items, and it cannot interact with things on the material plane. And material plane cannot interact. Creatures on the material plane cannot interact with it without the help of magic. But the spirit does have some abilities that it can use while it's in the Border Ethereal to kind of send a message to those in the material plane. The book says as an action, you can make a DC 10 charisma check in order to exert 5 pounds of force on an object. And spirits can use this to kind of draw in the snow or pick up things and move them around. I don't necessarily agree with the check, though, given that there's no real success or failure. If you roll your charisma check and fail it, you're just going to roll it again. There's no consequences to failure. And I personally, when I'm DMing, if there's no consequences to failure, I don't bother with the roll. You just keep trying until you get it. It feels kind of like a waste of time to sit there and roll charisma checks, but that's up to the DM if you guys want to do that. By the book, it's a DC 10 charisma check in order to interact with objects, 5 pounds of force, draw messages, etc. When the party arrives at the Black Cabin, they're going to notice 2 stone chimneys that rise several feet above its sagging roofline. They're also going to notice that the rest of the lodge is made of rotting wood and that stilts are elevating the structure 20 feet. And if you walk underneath the old building, you can tell that its wooden floors are in poor condition, even in danger of collapse in some locations. Characters also notice that part of the ridge that the Black Cabin rested on fell away some time ago, making the westernmost section of the building hanging over the edge of a cliff. Have your party arrive coming from the south, and the first area that they'll encounter is the outhouse, area 1. And this outhouse is half buried in snow, and if the characters decide to clear out some of that snow and dig a path to the door, they'll find stacks of discarded notes and blueprints, which Macretus was using as toilet paper. This is an opportunity if the characters actually take the time to dig to this door. You can hint at what's inside the cabin, maybe some notes about his device, something about bringing summer back, things like that. Just some hints at what the device's purpose is, but not too much. You don't want to give away too much here. Because the Black Cabin is elevated 20 feet, the characters are going to have to walk up a staircase to get to the wooden walkway, which is area 2. As the characters step on this walkway, the boards will creak and crackle under their feet. At the west end of this walkway, right before the main entrance to the Black Cabin, is a gap in the walkway itself, about 4 feet wide. And the characters don't need a check in order to leap across it, but if they put more than 150 pounds on the walkway, it collapses, and they need a DC 10 dexterity saving throw, or essentially fall to their death, taking 14 D6 bludgeoning damage as they fall down the gorge. If one of your players fails this dex save and ends up falling to their death, they're going to become a spirit in the Black Cabin, in which case they'll meet Macretus. I would hold off on this particular interaction with Macretus until the rest of the party has explored the black cabin, because there are other death effects inside. Now, you can gauge this depending on your character's reaction to dying. Having a character die right here without knowing what's coming can be kind of tricky. So use your best judgment for this one here. What I would do personally is if somebody dies here, just have them wait, have the party finish the rest of the cabin, and they may die as well. Somebody will more than likely die in the cabin. And then once everyone is a spirit, or everyone that once all the death effects have been passed, then you can start the role play interaction with Macretus, and everybody that has died can start interacting with the ghost and with whoever is still alive. Area 3 is the workshop, and it's sectioned off from the rest of the cabin. Inside here, they'll find some smith tools and tinker's tools spread across a wooden table, and there's also scraps of metal that they can use later on when they find the blueprints. There's also a bookcase here on the north wall that has harmless squirrels living in. Area 4 is the main room, and this is where the party is going to find Macretus, or at least his skeleton. They're also going to find the book that he's been using to get the information that he needs, and they're going to find the Summer Star itself. At the west end of this room is another death trap. If one of the characters decides to walk around and explore a bit, if they weigh more than 150 pounds, they're going to need a DC 15 dexterity saving throw. And if they fail, they fall to the bottom of the gorge and take another, and this is another 14d6, which will more than likely kill anybody who falls to the floor. If they pass, they are hanging off of the edge, in which case they can start making athletics checks to climb up. The DC is 10, and if they fail by 5 or more, they fall. But another character can help them up, giving them advantage. Now, as I mentioned, the Summer Star is here, the device that Macretus has been working on this whole time. And I'll go more in depth on the Summer Star after I've covered the rest of this cabin. Area 5 is where Macretus kept his sweet berry summer wine. The wine in the barrels in this room are completely frozen, and even though Macretus can't drink it, he still gets really upset if anyone decides to thaw it and start drinking from his private stash. Area 6 is the lab, and it's here that the characters will find a clay figure, and with a DC 15 Arcana, they can determine that this is Macretus' homunculus. They'll also find several blueprints, and anyone that is proficient in Arcana can determine that these blueprints are for the Summer Star. Area 7 is an abandoned bedroom, and the book says that this place is unfit for habitation and it hasn't been used in a long time. Area 8 is Macretus' bedroom, and it's here that the players will actually learn that Copper was here helping Macretus build this Summer Star. And they'll determine this when they find Copper's letter to Macretus, which actually hints at the flaw that the Summer Star has. Now, when you're ready to present Macretus to the party, he will appear as a spectral floating head with fiery eyes. Unfortunately, the book doesn't detail what race Macretus is. I just assumed rock gnome because of all the tinkering and all that, but he could be really any race. And it also details that he is arrogant and refuses to accept responsibility for his shortcomings. He doesn't feel like it was his fault that the device malfunctioned. And it's actually this drive to complete the device is what's keeping his spirit here in the Border Ethereal, keeping his spirit from passing on, rather. And if the party offends him in any way and tries to pass the blame or anything like that, they will quickly lose favor with Macretus. And his drive is really to make a name for himself and to represent Lathander, which is his deity, obviously bringing back the god of the dawn and the morning light being here in Icewind Dale. It'd be a big deal for him to bring the sun back here in Icewind Dale. So he'll manifest as a spirit to anybody who has died in the cabin. And it's at that point that you can start working on the Summer Star. Now, as I mentioned, the Summer Star is in the main room, Area 4. If you want to change the location, it is totally possible that Macretus picked up the Summer Star and maybe moved it to another room. Maybe he didn't want people to see his charred skeleton, the charred book, all the burn marks on the wall, and think that the Summer Star was to blame. Because the way this scene is set up, anybody that walks in and just sees all this in just this one room, just fire everywhere, and then this summer star, which radiates magic if you use detect magic, they may determine that this is the cause of it. And the reason I personally moved it was because Macretus probably wouldn't want people to assume that, and they'd be less likely to interact with it, less likely to help fix it. You can also kind of place this summer star in a room where it will have a better chance to hit the entire party. I would recommend that the summer star, when it bursts, it does a 10-foot radius. Everybody within 10 feet of it pretty much dies. It does 10d10 plus 35. Does a lot of damage when it goes off. And it is possible that maybe another character's in another room of the cabin. Maybe they're exploring when somebody picks this thing up. And when they pick it up, they actually have a chance to drop it. It'll start glowing. And if the character doesn't drop it immediately, that's when the radius or the radiant burst goes off and kills pretty much everything. Everything within 10 feet of it, which if it's in area 4 will be everything in the room. The room is everything in area 4 will die if this thing goes off in there. But I would recommend that you make it to where when this thing goes off, it kills everything in the cabin. Every creature in the cabin. Those squirrels gone, every party member dead. And I don't want you to go too crazy with trying to kill the party. If one character is outside, it goes off, they live, it's fine. But there's a lot of fun to be had if the entire party is a spirit. And the reason for that is, as a spirit, the party can't interact with the summer star. They can't fix its design flaw. And the book actually has an NPC show up, and the party can actually interact with that NPC by drawing notes on the wall, moving objects around, things like that. And I think that was so fun. I loved the idea of the entire party being spirits interacting with an NPC in this way. Because if one party member lives, it will essentially turn into just, okay, I'm gonna, I'll walk through this because the party member is informed. They've been here since Copper. They came here. They know what the Summer Star is all about. Having a random NPC show up, no idea what's going on, and then suddenly ghosts start interacting with them, and the party has to convince them as ghost to complete this task is really, really fun. So again, don't just outright kill your party, but try to position things in a way to where hope for it. Hope for it. Try to put the star in a room. You can make the star just blow up the entire cabin or like fill the entire cabin with radiant light and everybody dies. It's just, there's a lot of fun to be had if if the whole party is a spirit. But the first step to fixing the summer star is to first identify it. And if Macretus is present, he can do this for you. If the party has upset him and he's gone away and left them to their own devices, then the party can use an Arcana check, or with advantage if they have the blueprints from the lab, and they can also use an Identify spell. And all of these will pretty much confirm that this device is made to control the weather. Step 2 is to analyze the problem with the Summer Star. And the book has it that Macretus believes that the rings are not enough to contain this magical energy. And with a DC 15 insight, the players can determine that it needs a third ring. Copper's note also hints at this. The problem is that if a player doesn't piece together the hint from the note, and they fail the insight check, there's no way to progress from there. They'll be kind of trapped looking at this device, unless you let them keep rolling, in which case, what's the point? So what I would have is if Macretus is present, he will just tell them that it needs a third ring. And if he's not present, then the party needs to make a roll. DC 15 insight. If they pass, they can figure out that it needs a third ring. If they fail, then they have to go win Macretus' favor back. They have to go call him. They have to apologize, whatever you see fit. But be careful with step 2 as the way it's presented, at least to me, there's a chance, a small chance, but there's a chance that you're just stuck. And I don't like the idea that like, oh, these roll an insight. Oh, nat 1, I failed. Okay, well, you eventually figure out that it needs a third ring. Like, just kind of like, I don't like roles that don't mean anything. If you guys haven't figured that out from my videos, haven't been watching my videos, I don't like roles that don't mean anything. Actually, it's kind of a pet peeve of mine as a player when a DM asks me to roll something that has no chance of failure, or there's no chance of failure, or there's no chance of success. If the outcome is already determined before I roll, I don't really care for that. And this one's really tricky because without passing that insight and without piecing together the letter from Copper, the party could be stuck staring at the summer star. So keep that in mind if you're running this and the party's trying to determine the problem. Don't be afraid to just give it to them, or Macretus knows, he just doesn't want to tell them unless they apologize if they had offended him before. Step 3, the same thing. They have to fix the design flaw. They have to forge a new ring and slap it on the summer star. And regardless of if the entire party is alive, dead, working on this device, one party member still alive, working on it, the entire party's working on it, whichever route you take, the only way to fix this is with a DC 15 Arcana check. And the problem with that is if they fail, the device doesn't get fixed. Any party members that are dead are stuck. Macretus is stuck, and there's just no way to move forward from that. So come up with a new way. I don't care for this particular check. When I ran this, I got rid of both of those, the Insight and the Arcana, to fix it. Because, like, when you think about it, if they roll that Arcana and fail, what can they do? Well, I mean, they'll either spend the time to eventually fix it, at which point, why did they roll? That's the same thing as before with the Insight check. Why roll if you're eventually just going to succeed, especially if time isn't an issue? You have all the time to sit here and work on it. There's no need to roll, right? The last step 4, is to activate this newly designed summer star, this working version of the summer star. And what this device does is it's going to cast Control Weather. And once that goes off, the summer star loses all its magical properties. You only get one Control Weather. And once the device goes off, Macretus' spirit can finally pass on to the afterlife. So that's really the purpose of this entire thing, is to fix his device so that he can pass on. And once he passes on, Lathander itself, the god, will actually bless the party with a pretty cool buff. They get 10 temporary hit points at every dawn, which is very nice. And I keep saying they will also resurrect the entire party. I can't remember if Lathander was gender fluid or male. I have to check that, but Lathander will resurrect anybody who's died within the last 24 hours gets resurrected immediately, and they will get the blessing, which will give them 10 temporary hit points. I didn't mention that if the entire party dies, I had it to where they couldn't work on the device as a spirit. They couldn't perform the tool checks needed to actually fix the device. They actually have to walk an NPC through how to fix it. And there's actually an NPC that shows up to the Black Cabin after some time determined by you. So once the NPC shows up, the characters can guide them through step 2, 3, and then finally step 4, where they activate the device and they're resurrected, and they'll have a new NPC companion. The book has Oyami, the werebear, the Goliath were polar bear, show up, and Oyami checks in on this Black Cabin every once in a while to make sure nothing evil is dwelling here. They just kind of pop in, and you can have that event happen while the party's a ghost, and then the party can try to interact with the werebear to guide her through fixing the summer star and then activating it. And Oyami is neutral good, so she would be willing to help if the party makes the right decisions, and let them be creative. I love the idea that of the party, like riding in the snow, like, hey, we need help, we're ghosts, kind of thing, and then being resurrected and having this new NPC. That's pretty cool. It's a good quest, and yeah, that's it for the video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you know how YouTube works. Hit those buttons. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what's your favorite of the Chapter 2 quests are, or Chapter 2 locations. And if you're a DM looking for players looking for a DM, make sure you join the Discord. Link in the description. Come by, ask questions. Let me know what you think. And as always, I'll see you at sundown.